Do you struggle with your day-to-day life? Are you one of the many people who can't seem to get ahead, living paycheck to paycheck? Are you one car accident or bad sinus infection away from bankruptcy and homelessness? Do you work a dead-end job wishing to die trying to be famous rather than live staring at a computer screen? Then I invite you down the rabbit hole, into a wonderland of wild fantasy. But not to forget about your troubles, to vent at them, to confront them, and eventually to give you the drive to overcome them. Welcome to the world of Shadowrun. This is a legacy tabletop role-playing game set in the not-so-distant future of 2084, where the world governments have all but collapsed, and the major corporations have risen to power. And the ravings of a paranoid schizophrenic is your normal Tuesday routine. Allow me to set the stage. Our story takes place in Seattle, one of the last bastions of civilization in the New World after most of the planet became a blasted hellscape. How is this different from cyberpunk? Magic. In the world of Shadowrun, the Mayan apocalypse actually happened, and magic came flooding back to the Earth. This plunged the world into chaos and, among other things, caused a sizable portion of the population to turn into fantasy creatures. However, the end of the world as we know it is no excuse for poor quarterly earnings, and it doesn't matter how many ghost-infested cities had to get nuked. The shareholders will want answers. And now that the world is firmly under the control of the top 10 AAA megacorporations, people can reject the modernity brought on by the early 2020s and return to the tradition of clocking into the office, where the average office drone will slave in their wage cage to earn new yen, so they can afford the luxury goods their company produces. Truly, the means of production are in your hands. But who are you? And where do you fit into the structure of this dystopian society? Well, you don't. In the world of Shadowrun, each person has a SIN, or System Identification Number, which is your social security number, driver's license, biological profile, record of all your permits, your social media profile, credit score, and bank account, all in the same place. And you don't have one. For one reason or another, you have fallen through the cracks of society. And that's a problem, because without a SIN, you aren't allowed to legally spend money. Which means that you can't buy food, housing, medical coverage, and more importantly, Funko Pops. And that's an issue, because people who aren't in the system aren't people at all. And the government and corporate security forces who are soldiers of the new world aren't obliged to treat you with respect. So you are faced with a choice. Either lay down and die in the gutter, or stand back up, dust yourself off, and adopt a new lifestyle outlook, which the authorities refer to as radical decentralized anti-corporate insurgency, but which I prefer to call moral relativism. The first rule of being a Shadowrunner is to have the right perspective. You might not have a single cent to your name, but your cup runneth over with something just as valuable: deniability. You may be invisible to the system, but that doesn't mean the corporations don't see you. And just because the megacorps that control the world are currently at peace, doesn't mean they like each other, and are locked in an invisible Cold War fought through an endless series of proxy battles, using people such as yourselves. And just because no legitimate business would ever hire you, doesn't mean there isn't someone willing to pay you a huge sum of money to practice your newfound outlook. This leads me to one of the reasons I love the structure of Shadowrun so much: motivation. In D&D, you might have a party comprised of eccentric individuals. Some seeking revenge for their burned town, a runaway noble who wants to see the world, someone investigating a magical mystery, and a deranged psychopath who loves killing and asks every NPC they come across, regardless of who they are, if they want to put out a hit. And all of this might have nothing to do with the main quest you have, which is to kill a beholder living at the bottom of an abandoned mine. But regardless of each Shadowrunner's personal background, they all run for the same reason: money. Have a dependent that needs medical treatment to keep living? Money will buy it. Want to live somewhere that isn't infested with cockroaches the size of house cats? You need the cash to maintain that lifestyle. Want to take revenge against the corporation who wronged you? High-value explosives don't come cheap. You aren't squatting on a rooftop in the middle of a rainy night, looking into some rich kid's penthouse because you are a hero. You are there to perpetrate a kidnapping, because a shady dude in an expensive suit named Mr. Johnson fronted you $15,000, and you only get the remaining $85,000 when the job is done. And if it doesn't go off without a hitch, you'll never work in this town again. Which brings us to Rule 2. Your reputation is everything. You can't do much alone, and you need a team of trusted individuals to take on big jobs. In Shadowrun, there is no I in team, but there is an I in performance review, and if Mr. Johnson isn't happy with the way you handled things, he's going to dock your pay. But more importantly, the community talks, and sufficiently botched jobs will hurt the reputation of each member of the team. But how are you going to pull off these jobs? Well, first you need to know your capability, which segues us nicely into character creation. Unlike other games which pigeonhole you into a particular class, Shadowrun has no classes at all. Your character can do anything you want them to, but will generally fall into one of 5 categories: Combat Specialist, Infiltration Specialist, Hacker, Drone Pilot, and Magic Specialist. Which of these types of characters are necessary to perform any given mission? All of them. Let's say that Mr. Johnson tasks you with a relatively easy mission of breaking into a building by the docks and retrieving a small package. You blindly accept the mission, and upon further investigation, you learn that the building is a highly guarded pharmaceutical laboratory, and the small package is probably a prototype new drug the company is developing. First, you need to do some reconnaissance, and the best way to do that is with drones. In the world of Shadowrun, everything is a drone. Cars are drones, guns are drones, boats are drones, and even drones are drones, which range in all sizes, from super gigantic forklift monstrosities to tiny little insectoid creatures, small enough to fit into an air conditioning system and perfect for reconnaissance. And of course, there is the issue of cybersecurity, which can be subverted by the hacker. And once you have the lay of the land, it's time to actually infiltrate, which is where you'll need a covert ops specialist. Masters of Stealth, the covert ops specialist can infiltrate virtually any building and retrieve the package with minimal effort, unless they have to talk to someone. Being a team of asocial grifters, you need somebody who can hold casual conversation, and that's where the face comes in. Sharply dressed and silver-tongued, the face can be anyone's friend, or disguise themselves as virtually anyone, and use the tools necessary to fool retinal, facial pattern, and fingerprint scanners. So far it seems like everything's going well, except it isn't, because once you're close to where you need to be, you run into a literal invisible wall. What the hell is this? Magic. How the hell do you get around it? By also having magic, and that's where you need a mage. A mage's job is to disable magical security and fight other mages, because the best way to combat magic is with magic. And if everything goes well, nobody will be any the wiser. Except nothing ever goes well, and the alarm's been sounded. Now the guards are pouring in, and you need somebody to bail out your infiltration team because they can't fight them all off. But you know who can? The street samurai, who uses their high-powered weapons and razor-sharp katanas to 10v1 all of the guards, while the team retrieves the package. But do you want to know what they can't fight? A gigantic robot. But you know who can? The weapon specialist. Do you know how to use a missile launcher? Probably not, but the weapon specialist does, along with virtually every other kind of exotic weapon. After a prolonged combat, your team eventually escapes. Everybody makes it back to the hideout, and you get swatted by Corpo Security, because your hacker got backtraced. But do you know who can't be backtraced? The Technomancer. You should have hired one, because they do not use computers to hack. They astral project into the internet and do it themselves. And your soul doesn't leave a trace. The only trade-off being that if they put themselves under too much pressure, they could die, and their soul will be trapped in the internet forever. But that is a small price to pay to not spend the rest of your life in a Frito-Lay prison. Don't want to play most of those roles? Don't worry. The mission is completely doable with a team of 5 combat specialists. Simply blow past the guard checkpoint, have your weapon specialist perform tactical renovation on the side of the building, drive through the rest of the interior walls to the vault, fend off the guards while the strongman uses a laser cutter to break into the safe, lose the cops in an off-road chase, proudly report back with all objectives met, and get docked 80% of your pay because Mr. Johnson didn't appreciate the noise you made, barely scrape up enough money to pay rent, and do it all over again. Gameplay mechanics. At its core, Shadowrun is a d6 dice pool system. 6s and 5s are always successes. 1s are very bad. Every one of your stats, and every one of your skills, and some of your special items add to the dice pool. Get enough 5s and 6s, and you succeed your test. If more than a certain number of your dice are 1s, you glitch, which doesn't necessarily mean you fail, but it does mean things get complicated. If a certain number of your dice are 1s, and you get no successes, then you critically glitch, and that's very bad. There are currently 6 editions of this game. Some are better than others. One of the greatest stigmas of this game is that the mechanics can be a little unintuitive, but I think you're pretty smart, and you could probably figure it out. I remember 4th edition being very well, but the character creation could be a little unintuitive at first. 5th edition is more streamlined, but has some issues that you could easily house roll out. 6th edition is not fantastic, has a lot of change-ups to the initial formula, and is generally poorly received by the community. You're gonna go on all kinds of crazy adventures and fight all kinds of stuff. Corporate security, gangbangers, orcs, ghosts, and dragons. Which leads me to the third and most important rule of Shadowrun: never trust a dragon. In the world of Shadowrun, dragons rule the earth. and they are the apex of all living creatures. They cannot be defeated. They cannot be hurt. They cannot be reasoned with. If you make a deal with a dragon, it will betray you. If you run afoul of a dragon, you are going to have to flee very far away to some desolate place like Burkina Faso, where you will live the rest of your life in constant fear of retribution. I love this game. It's got something for everyone, and so much to explore. The structure of the game is heist-oriented, which means you'll probably spend the first half of a session or first whole session gathering information on your target and planning out your heist, and the next half of the game session executing it. Nothing is more rewarding than to know that you planned correctly, and nothing is more frustrating than to figure out that you missed something, or fail to account for the fact that the place you're trying to infiltrate is haunted by ghosts. The best way to fight ghosts? With other ghosts. That's why you need to hire a summoner, who can pull spirits from the astral plane and bind them to their will, which is a dangerous prospect because spirits are fickle creatures, and you have to be very specific on how you word their instructions. And what you receive for completing a job well done is the money you need to further your personal end goals. I highly recommend that you give Shadowrun a shot. Sure, it can be rough, but I'd rather play something that's a little flawed but has a lot of heart than a perfectly balanced miniature skirmish game. There are thousands of other role-playing games out there, and if you take the time to try something new, you might find something that you like. Many more videos on the way, so be sure to keep watching, and make sure to keep rolling those dice, everybody.